Good afternoon. My name is Allison S. Cartwright. Thank you for joining us today for the third of 4 listening sessions by the Boston Police Task Force. Before we get into the session, we would like to go over the different language options available for this meeting and how you can participate. We will then introduce ourselves, the charge of the task force, and the specific topic of today's listening session, and then turn it over to hear your feedback. Will the Vietnamese interpreter please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Linh Nguyên, Vietnamese Interpreter. Kính chào các quý vị. Tôi tên là Khánh Linh. Quý vị đã dành thời gian để tham gia vào cuộc họp thảo này với đề tài là nâng cao vai trò của Hội đồng đánh giá cảnh sát hiện tại của Boston, là hội đồng hợp tác. Nếu các quý vị có thể cài số điện thoại 1617-675-4444, mã truy cập là 1131 432 9958115, và xin vui lòng tắt âm lượng máy điện thoại của quý vị trong sự kiện chính này. Cảm ơn nhiều. Thank you very much.
Will the Spanish interpreter please introduce yourself?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gabriela Herrera y soy una de las 2 intérpretes de español para esta sesión. Si alguien necesita el audio en español, por favor llame al 617-675-4444. Nuevamente, 617-675-4444 con el código de acceso 728-297-573-1854 y el símbolo de número. Nuevamente, el código de acceso es 728-297-573-1854 y el signo de número. Hasta abajo van a ver unos botoncitos y necesitamos que toda la gente esté en silencio si van a participar en la habitación, en la junta principal. Y si pueden hacer sus comentarios en la cajita de chat, también se los vamos a agradecer. Gracias y bienvenidos.
Thank you. Will the Haitian Creole interpreter please introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Samuel Malice. I'll be the Haitian Creole interpreter for this meeting today. Non pas si Samuel Malice, c'est cap interprète créole haïtien. Si vous voulez participer dans l'émission ça, l'événement principal ça, venez dans le numéro ça, 617-675-4444. Encore une fois, 617-675-4444. Et l'offre composé numéro ça, on code access, on code qui vous accès. Numéro code là, c'est 453-179-259-92-11. Code accès encore, c'est 453-179-259-92-11. Et puis après ça, peser pound. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Will the Mandarin interpreter please introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Terry Ying, and me and my coworker Wei will be your Mandarin interpreter. 大家好，今天我的名字叫 Terry， 我会跟 Wei 在这里帮你们做普通话的翻译，请你们可以拨打1617-675-4444，然后加入密码是185-386-240-5224加井号。再说一次，617-675-4444，密码是185-386-240-5224加井号。谢谢 ，Thank you.
Welcome. Will the Cantonese interpreter please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Anna and Melissa will be a Cantonese interpreter for the meeting today. 大家好 ，Anna 同埋 Melissa 將會係你哋嘅廣東話翻譯員。你需要廣東話翻譯服務嘅話，請致電617-675-4444，電話係617-675-4444。請輸入密碼720-950-146-2457，井字重申一次720-950-146-2457，井字 ，Thank you， 多謝晒。
You're welcome. Will the Cape Verdean Creole interpreter please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Rochelle. Along with my colleague Eva, we will be your Cape Verdean interpreters. Olá, meu nome é Rochelle, junto com Eva, nós temos intérpretes cabo-verdianos. Se nós mestre de áudio na crioulo cabo-verdiano, nós pode chamar para 617-675-4444 e código de acesso é 548 211-97-33 e depois nós podemos colocar naquele sinal de número no lado direito no teclado numérico. Obrigado.
Thank you. Live captioning will be streamed simultaneously as a split screen to this session. On the right-hand side of the screen, you will see a window to view the multimedia player, which will show the live captioning. Please click Continue to view the live captioning. The ASL stream of this meeting can be accessed via Zoom platform. Meeting ID is 964-5353-6839, and the passcode is 151195. The WebEx meeting will be screen shared in the Zoom platform with no audio. Everyone joining this event as an attendee will have their microphone muted, and you will not have the ability to turn your camera on. If you are joining on a computer device, at the bottom of your screen, you have a menu that has different icons. The microphone will be grayed out since you are muted as an attendee. If you can't hear, please click the phone icon and check to make sure your audio connection is set to speaker and microphone. To give testimony, please raise your hand or comment in chat. The host will unmute you. Raise your hand, open the participant information panel. Click the hand icon in the lower right corner. If you are connected by telephone, please press *3 to raise your hand. You will hear 2 beeps when you are taken off mute. At that point, you can begin your spoken testimony. Once your testimony is done, please click the raise hand sign again to lower your hand. If you are joining by phone, please press *3 to lower your hand. Please keep in mind that this meeting is being recorded and testimony will be shared with the task force. We encourage you to continue submitting written comments via the Google form on the boston.gov /ending-racism website until August 7th. You will see that on your screen right now. To ensure all opinions are heard and respected, the decorum for these listening sessions are as follows. First, we ask that you engage respectfully at all times. Disruptive behavior will not be permitted. Priority for spoken testimony will go to those who signed up 24 hours in advance via the bit.ly Google form. After everyone who signed up in advance has provided their spoken testimony, the public listening session will open up for comments for as long as time permits. The host will unmute attendees who raise their hand to speak on a first-come, first-served basis. When it is your turn to testify, you will be unmuted by the host. Spoken testimony will be limited to about 2 minutes per person at the discretion of the task force to allow as many people as possible to share their thoughts. We encourage you to submit additional written testimony via bit.ly /BPD form. Please be mindful of the pace of your spoken testimony so that it's clear for the interpreters. That's why I'm speaking as slowly as I am. We have a number of interpreters and they need us to speak slowly to do their jobs. Again, these listening sessions will be recorded and transcripts will be made available to the task force. This time, I'd like to make a brief round of introductions of our task force members. Our chair, Mr. Wayne Budd, is here this afternoon. Mr. Budd, would you like to say hello?
I would like to say hello, Allison, and thank you for moderating this panel. My name is Wayne Budd. I'm chair of the task force. I'm an attorney in Boston, former United States attorney for the District of Massachusetts.
Thank you. Joseph D. Feaster is present. Would you like to say hello, Mr. Feaster?
Thank you very much, Allison, and I want to thank our chairman and thanking you for chairing this this listening session today. To our person who are participating, I'm an attorney here in Boston. I am chairman of the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts Board of Directors and a past chair of the Boston branch and a past president of the Boston branch NAACP.
Alicia Sullivan is here. Would you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to hearing directly from our community members on this issue. As you know, we have an important task ahead of us, but it is critically important that we hear from you, have your perspective, and make sure that it is that your perspectives and your experiences and your needs and hopes for this work are incorporated into whatever recommendations we may have. I am the president of the NAACP Boston branch. It is a pleasure to serve.
Is Darren here? Darren Howell is the president of Drive Boston Community Resources Incorporated and the political coordinator for 1199 SEIU. Superintendent Dennis White.
He won't be with us today.
Okay, he is the chief of staff for the Boston Police Department. Marie St. Fleur. I believe I saw here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Allison. I just want to extend my appreciation to everyone who's taken the time to join us this afternoon. As you know, we can't do this work without hearing from you. You are the folks who live in our communities, and often many of you may have been directly impacted by the work that we're trying to do here. So we really want to hear your experiences. We want to hear your suggestions, and I look forward to that. My name's Marie St. Fleur. I'm a former state rep, currently run St. Fleur Communications, and a resident of Dorchester. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Jeffrey Brown. I don't believe he's here today. He is the associate pastor of the historic 12th Baptist Church in Roxbury. Edward Crispin, you're here today. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm just waiting to unmute. Hold on.
We can hear you.
Oh, you can? Okay. Good
Yes.
afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Again, my name is Eddie Crispin, not Edward Crispin. That's not Allison's fault. They changed my name. I am a Boston police officer for the last 20 years and president of the Massachusetts Association of Minority Law Enforcement Officers. Thank you for being here. We look forward to incorporating your thoughts and ideas into the final draft that we'll be submitting to the mayor. Thank you again.
Thank you. Mr. Javier Flores. I do not believe he is here this afternoon. He is a partner at Dinsmore LLP. Jamal Crawford, you are present. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, Jamal Crawford, community activist. Thank you for everybody who took time out to be here, and I look forward to engaging commentary.
Okay, that is our task force. I am Allison S. Cartwright. I am the attorney in charge of the Roxbury Defenders. That's the public defender agency, and the office is located in the heart of Nubian Square. Again, welcome. And I would like to give you a brief background on these listening sessions. On June 12th, Mayor Walsh signed onto the Mayor's Pledge, the Obama Foundation MBK's Alliance. As part of this pledge to turn commitments to reform into action, the mayor convened the Boston Police Task Force and charged it with reviewing, improving the body camera program, recommending rigorous implicit bias training for officers, reviewing Boston's use of force policies, and strengthening the existing co-op board. As part of their review, the task force will engage the community and listen to a broad range of input, expertise, and experience, and then present these recommendations to the mayor within 60 days. The specific topic of today's session is strengthening Boston's existing police review board, known as co-op. Co-op stands for Community Ombudsman Oversight Panel. It is an independent group made up of 5 civilian members appointed by the mayor. Panel members have expertise in law and criminal justice. The panel's job is to make sure that police investigations are fair and thorough. The panel reviews complaints against the department's internal investigation team, including cases that have a finding of not sustained, cases where the defendant was exonerated, cases where the claims were considered unfounded, or cases where the person filing an appeal feels they weren't given fair treatment. In 2017, the mayor signed an executive order to expand the panel's size from 3 to 5 members, and the caseload, and to include a random review of cases that do not have complaints against them. The subgroup of the task force assigned to look into the co-op includes myself, Joseph Feaster, Alicia Sullivan, and Jamal Crawford. We have reviewed research into this topic, current research, I might add. More importantly, we have met with members of a few cities across the country to discuss similar types of programs that they have. We spoke with officials from Chicago and New York City. We are hoping to meet with some other officials if we can do that within our time frame. Quickly, what we have learned is in Chicago, they have a deputy mayor of public safety who is responsible for handling these citizen complaints. They have 4 different bodies that handle these types of situations, and they are considering a 5th. When we spoke with officials from New York City has an office that handles these complaints. It is fully staffed with 180 employees, most of whom are investigators. They have a chief prosecutor and a deputy chief prosecutor. All told, they have about 10 prosecutors and 4 support staff in the event that they need to take further action on their findings. We would at this point like to open up this session and to hear from you, the people of the community, on what you would like to see for some type of police review board for the city of Boston. So I will ask the host, let's see, we have Joe Regan. Can you unmute Joe, please?
So I just want to make sure that folks who want to give feedback know to raise their hand. And you can do that by clicking raise your hand in the participant panel or hitting *3 if you're calling it. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize, Joe. I put you on the spot there. I just started looking at the attendees. So if anyone would like to give us your thoughts, your comments, your experiences, we would welcome that. you've had any experience or what you would like citizens or community review board to look like.
So I'm going to unmute Darrell, who has their hand raised. You're unmuted.
Hello, my name is Weathers. I'm a local resident from Boston, and I've lived in all neighborhoods from Mattapan to Dorchester to Roxbury. This is absolutely amazing that there's even a possibility for a civilian review board, because we never had a chance to define ourselves for ourselves, and I feel like with this civilian review board is holding the police accountable and having the people actually hold them accountable, which I think is very impactful. I've dealt with a lot of the disparities as being a Black man from Boston, and so has my friends. But we really feel as a community that we need people like us to define ourselves and hold them accountable and tell all the experiences that we experience, because a lot of it's not being brought to the forefront.
Thank you. Trying to scroll. I think I see Stephen Buckley. The host could unmute Stephen. Stephen has a hand up.
Stephen, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering, I realized that Ms. Cartwright was saying they've consulted with other cities, and you don't have to answer this question, but I guess it's something that should be considered, was that whether or not the existing co-op panel was based on what kind of model it was based on, whether there's some type of national model to see how that's working out and to review that compared to other cities who may have adopted a similar model as exists right now. I did a Google search of citizen oversight models, and there is a number of organizations that have different models. So I guess I would suggest that if there was something that looks like it's going to be a national model, then that would be the best thing, rather than 50 different cities having 50 different models and having it all be totally homegrown and custom made. The other part is that I tried to find on the website where practices and procedures would be, so that somebody, if they wanted to find out if there was a problem where someone wasn't following policies and procedures under the Office of Standards, there's no link to any of those procedures. So, if you wanted to find out if a chokehold or a toe hold or some kind of hold was acceptable or not acceptable, I could not find where that is located to find out if I wanted to file a complaint. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And once you have spoken, can you please lower your hand? Do we have anyone else who would like to give some input? Yes, I see we have Jacob Lido. The host can unmute Jacob, please.
Jacob, you're unmuted.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Great. I've been having some mic issues in the past sessions. So I wanted to echo the first caller's call for civilian review. I think as a citizen, a lifelong resident of the city, we need to have direct input on how our public servants are serving us and some sort of mechanism to bring accountability when we are being disturbed by them. I've done a lot of work and organizing and research in this area over the last 10, 15 years, I would say. And from the co-op itself, they have asked for increased oversight capabilities broader than what they have been granted in the recent executive order. They have also acknowledged the need for a separate, they described it as a COPA, a Citizens Office of Police Accountability, but some sort of civilian staffed and maintained board that had the ability to provide oversight, just like the co-op. I agree with that. I also agree with panelist Jamal Crawford's push and Mass Police Reform's push for a more broadly encompassing civilian review board that has purview not only into cases of misconduct and brutality, but also and complaints, but also into the overall operations of the department, as it is, you know, an institute of public service and a public institution. Lastly, I think one of the things that the co-op has recognized in the need for a COPA, and citizens have called for in asking for a civilian review is we need to make this process accessible to people outside of the police department. So you shouldn't have to go down to the BPD in order to file a complaint or follow up. You should be able to access those services in other buildings run and staffed by the city. And that those services should be available in multiple languages. So thank you for your time. Thank you for hearing my testimony.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments very much. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? We are listening. Well, does anyone have any thoughts on what it would look like? I know Jacob gave us some pretty good ideas of COPA and some other things. Does anyone else have any thoughts to just sort of pick up on what Jacob said? And actually, Jacob, if you would like to expound on that, we do have a little bit of time.
Just want to give Chad Fletcher the opportunity to speak. Chad, you're unmuted.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, Chad, I didn't see your hand.
That's okay. That's okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. All right. There was a meeting earlier today that was held by Councilor Andrea Campbell, and she made a proposal for a civilian review board. I was wondering if you guys have had a chance to take a look at that and use what she presented at City Hall today if you would use that as a template for your own. Like how much? I'm just thinking, yeah, because if you, I don't know if you've seen it or not, and if you have, what bits and pieces. I mean, have you as a task force incorporate for your own?
Tanisha, were you gonna go, or should I take that?
Oh no, I was. You should take it. Go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, you know, I may be speaking a little bit out of school, but a couple of things I want to do here just for clarification of the listening audience. So number one, most of us have, you know, we've been involved in this for quite some time. So no, the concept of what's now trying to morph out of city council as a civilian review is, in my opinion, let me speak for myself. I'm not speaking in official capacity for the task force. That is a late reaction to something that has been pushed by people like me for 20 years. So you, sir, can rest assured that, at least for myself and many others here, I'm intimately involved with all that. What we would like to do, though, is do the work of the task force, right? Analyze everything, including that. That's not off limits, including that, right? And to come up with the best thing based on what we had tasked for. The only thing that I can say is that in this, I just want folks to understand the distinction that the fact of we're talking about the co-op and we're talking about a civilian review board. I don't want folks to get it misconstrued that the co-op is civilian review board. The co-op is very different from traditional civilian review. So if folks have ideas on the existing co-op and strengthening that, we're all ears. And if folks have ideas on creating a new citizens review board, because we do not have one currently, then we're also all ears for that. Henceforth, while we've looked at models in other cities, and yes, once again, to the other person's point, trust me, not just a couple of cities we've talked to, myself and others have been looking at these models for quite some time. Please rest assured.
This is Tanisha. I do want to weigh in. First, I do want to acknowledge that, yes, I mean, I think over the past 6 to 8 weeks in particular, we've seen an increased interest in this issue in particular as it relates to a civilian review board and other accountability levers that may be appropriate to implement here in the city of Boston. And I think that that is good. I do think it is good that our city councilors and other elected officials are taking an interest in this and are exploring what might be the right fit for us here in the city of Boston. That being said, to Jamal's point, this is an issue that so many of us have been intimately involved with advocacy around for quite some time. And so what I absolutely, in my opening comments, I said, I'm looking forward to hearing from community. I want to hear more from our residents here in the city of Boston on this topic. And so to that end, I look forward to reviewing the recording from today's hearing of the City Council to see what folks said there. In addition to taking into consideration, as Jamal said, many of the conversations that we're having with people from across the country. At the end of this process, our goal is to come up with the strongest, best recommendation possible to present to the mayor, to present to the police commissioner, as it relates to this topic in particular. If that means that we're strengthening the co-op board, so be it. If that means that we're scrapping the co-op board and we're putting in place a civilian review board, then so be it. But what's most important is that whatever recommendation we put forward, it's a recommendation that comes from community. And so what I'd be interested in hearing is, was there anything in particular that you heard in the hearing today, or anything in particular that you've read about, or that you yourself have presented as it relates to co-ops or civilian review boards, any type of oversight that resonates with you, that you want to make sure that we include in our deliberations?
Well, I haven't looked into it. That I wasn't able to attend the meeting because I had a prior engagement for my regular job. But as far as the, she did send me the review. She did send me the PDF of what she presented at City Council today. I want to take a look. I want to take a second look at it, and then I can provide some feedback a little bit later on in the session.
Okay, wonderful. And of course, you have until, what is it, August 7th or August 9th, someone will correct me, to submit any of your, if you have written feedback. So the door is not closed after today. But again, look, there are many conversations happening around the city, at the state level, and across the country. The most important thing, again, from my perspective, is that we hear from you, our neighbors here in the city. What do you want to see? What do you want to make sure that we are, what are the issues you want to make sure we are deliberating? Because although many of us have been on this issue and so many of these issues for quite some time, we don't know everything, and we might have blind spots. And so please do not hesitate to share your thoughts with us. Thank you.
Check back in with us before the end of this session to let us know your thoughts. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
So I'm going to unmute Emily H., who has a question. Emily?
Hi, Emily. Can you speak?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I'm very new to this whole procedure. I've never heard of this review board before, and I guess my main question is, after the panel reviews complaints, what happens next? What happens to their review? What does the City of Boston or BPD do with that review?
Okay. as a quick response to your question, the panel sends their results and their comments to the chief of the professional standards, who then looks at it, and if the co-op person does not agree with the result, then the chief of the Bureau of Professional Standards will give that information, will take that into consideration and decide that it can stand as it was. But the final say is with the police commissioner. So the ombudsman simply looks at it to see if the process itself was fair. So can you tell me, knowing that, what are your thoughts?
I think my biggest concern is just that it seems to undermine the power of an independent review if it then just goes back to the police commissioner. Eventually, where does you said the chief of professional standards, where does he fall in terms of who his superior is, who he reports to?
In this instance, he reports up to the police commissioner. However, Sergeant Crispin could probably give us more insight if there are any interim. It eventually go to the police commissioner himself or herself.
Okay.
Sorry, did you have a question for me?
Yes, once the chief of the Bureau of Professional Standards looks at the what the panel has recommended from the co-op panel, does it then go directly to the police commissioner, or are there any other levels in between? It's my understanding.
It goes straight to the commissioner, and the commissioner makes the ultimate decision.
Okay, thank you. We asked the host, are there any other hands up? I see hands up. I don't know if they're new or that they.
Allison, it's Wayne. I wanted to make a comment, if I could.
Yes. Yes,
I
Mr.
want to go back to the gentleman who talked about the ordinance that's been filed by Councilor Campbell. I just wanted to mention that the work of our task force, as all of its members knows, is to respond to the mayor's request for our recommendations as a result of our reviews. So we're not in competition by any stretch of the imagination with the city council, but we would see as our task to respond to the mayor, and the mayor, I'm sure, in his wisdom, will be taking up our recommendations, perhaps, with the city council, and we'll see what flows from that. But our job, quite frankly, is to respond to the mayor. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there any other comments? New hands up? Is anyone else you've already spoken? Do you have any follow-up that you would like to address with us or tell us?
This is Tanisha. I would, and I do apologize if I've missed it, but I'd really be interested in hearing from some of our neighbors about, just generally speaking, you don't have to know all these terms, a co-op, a civilian review board, or whatever you want to call it. What I'd be interested in hearing is just from just a practical standpoint, just from a day-to-day standpoint, how would you like, or what would you like the process to look like if you have an issue or concern related to BPD, Boston Police Department? What would you want that process to look like? Where would you want to go to if you had a complaint that you wanted to file? How would you want to do that? Do you want the option to pick up the phone? Do you want to walk into a building? Do you want to submit an email? How do you want that to, what do you want that to look like? Again, don't think about these different, I know we're throwing around a lot of acronyms, but generally speaking, if there's an issue or concern, what are your thoughts about how you would like to engage with BPD?
And currently with the co-op, you can file your appeal one of three ways. You can write it, so you can mail it in, you can email it, or you can hand deliver it to the law department at Boston City Hall. So those are the three ways. I would also like to put out there, just sort of following up on what Tanisha has said, when we spoke with some of the folks, particularly in New York City, they move their meetings around to each of the boroughs. So they hold monthly meetings and they're never just in one place. What would you like for whatever entity, first of all, what entity would you like for Boston to have, and how would you like for it to operate? So we have some more new hands up.
I'm going to unmute Valerie Copeland. Valerie, you're unmuted.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Can you speak up? Sorry, Valerie, we're not able to hear you. Valerie? I believe we may have lost Valerie. Is there anyone else out there who has thoughts on this? What type of a entity would you like to see, and how would you like for it to operate?
Okay, so are these new hands? Steve, Buckley, Durrell, I see Valerie again, and Jacob. Are those new hands or old hands?
No, they've been up for a while, Tanisha.
So for folks that have already been called on, unless you have new testimony, if you can lower your hand by hitting raised hand again or hit *3 again to lower your hand. Thank you.
So Valerie, are you back with us?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Valerie.
Oh, great. Thank you. Good afternoon. I am a lifelong resident of Boston. I do have to say that the thought of going into the police station or going into City Hall to give a complaint is it's a little troubling. I would like to see the ability to make a complaint outside of the 9 to 5 hours, because a lot of times people have to work. So if we could make a complaint in the evening hours or on the weekend, it would be great to be able to make it via email or to have some type of 311 type of phone number that someone, a civilian, could call. But I am also concerned about who looks at your complaint and whether or not they deem it a legitimate complaint. And my previous experience with the police, it can be very dismissive and very just disrespectful, just trying to just get basic information whenever I've had to go to a police station. So just that feeling alone sort of kicks something up in me, because I've wanted to make complaints before, but I just kind of felt like they wouldn't be taken seriously at all. And then the ability to make sure that a decision is made within a timely manner, and that an appeal can be made by the complainant to say that they disagree with the decision that was being made. So I think what's really important is some kind of transparency. And for me as a resident to feel like the process is a legitimate process, that it's going to be really investigated, and that there is some possibility of accountability. We know that accountability is a tough prospect when dealing with BPD. So if there's no accountability, if it's not transparent, it's going to be difficult for someone like me to feel like it's a legitimate process. And a lot of times that's why people don't make complaints, is because you just feel like you're just not going to be taken seriously. So that's my comment.
If I could just jump briefly, so the process as it is right now, people may file a report either in person or online, and all the reports, all complaints sent directly to Internal Affairs, who then looks through them. None of them are summarily dismissed. There is a call, an interview that takes place with everybody who files a complaint. Again, I can't speak to people's sense of whether or not it's been thoroughly vetted, their complaint, but I know they do have the process in place where you can file in person at the district station, at headquarters, or online.
Based on my own experience, there is a sign posted in every district which talks about the complaint process. The complaint process is also merged with the commendation process. And much like anecdotal experience from growing up, if you ask an officer for their badge number or what's your name, you're not exactly met with enthusiastic response. And it's much like that if you have to walk into a department and say, hey, I'm here to complain. Where's the complaint form? So while the information is there, it's not necessarily too warm and fuzzy and welcoming.
And will the host unmute Jacob? Hello, Jacob?
Hello, thank you for taking additional testimony. So to just give a bit more detail, when you ask what do we want to see ideally, I want any and all of the above. So I think strengthening the co-op is a great thing. I think they have a unique insight, and I think they should continue to do what they do. I think the COPA is an interesting idea, and I think, you know, a pure civilian review board, perhaps with greater purview, as I'll get into in a minute, would be great. One of the things that I disagree a bit with, or would like to push back on from the co-op's recommendations about the COPA, is about perceived bias. And so I understand perceived bias and real bias is a real thing. However, I just want to make sure that that language isn't used to keep out critical voices that are critical on the basis of fact and experience, and that, you know, people who are critical of how our public servants serve us and seek the best professionalism from those folks aren't left out of the conversation for perceived bias. In general, though, I think a citizen review board should have broad oversight, broad overview, not just into specific cases of misconduct or alleged misconduct or issues of brutality or use of force, but I think also general policy making. I think they should be able to have suggestions on what kind of training is used, hiring, firing, community engagement, what kinds of programming, budgeting, all of that. I think none of it should be off limits, you know, within reason. I think there might be certain safety concerns where, you know, or whatever, you might have to leave certain things to the experts, but I think the civilians should still have a voice in that entire process and on all subjects. And then onto how specifically we would engage, you know, what the process would ideally look like if you had to, you know, complain or try to seek justice. I think opening up as many avenues as possible so that there are many choices: phone, email, various appointed folks who could serve as that kind of mediator. So, you know, community center folks, teachers, you know, trusted people within the community, libraries, places where the city already has folks engaging with the community. I think they should also be able to help in guiding folks to this information and or, you know, sort of receiving that information. And then I think all of the responsible boards should be notified. I don't think we should just wait until IA has decided that it's unfounded or not, you know, not sustained or whatever. I think everyone should, at least in the initial phase, I think the boards that are tasked with this responsibility should be aware of it before, you know, that determination has to be made. And then finally, I agree with the co-op's recommendation and going all the way back to the St. Clair Commission's report from 1992. There needs to be a 60 to 90-day window to resolve all cases. You know, if things sit there for 4 to 5 years, as they often do, I think community faith in the process is kind of utterly lost. So thank you again for taking additional comments and for your time on this issue.
Appreciate all the you put into this. Very much appreciated. Next.
So, one moment. This is Tanisha. I'd actually like to, Jacob, if you're still there, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. I appreciate your comments. Found them to be very helpful. Do you have any additional insight or observations of oversight structures in other parts of the country, other cities or other larger towns that you think could be instructive to us? Just curious.
I do not, although I do not offhand, although that is some of the research that we've been doing. So, you know, I'm excited to hear about what you guys have been looking into, and maybe we can connect some of those resources offline and then maybe put it up publicly for folks too once it's a complete list.
That would be very helpful. Again, you know, look, we're doing the best we can in the time that's been afforded to us, but certainly welcome any additional inputs from folks who are also trying to learn about these different structures. That could be helpful here. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to hear from, I believe it's Daryl has another question. Then we're going to pause after that. Daryl, you have something more to add?
Yes, I do, and I want to thank you guys for taking on the additional comments. It's severe right now. This is a very has a lot of substance. So, but I speak for the streets. I speak for the voice of the streets, pretty much. I speak for the 70% Black and brown community that's being pulled over, and I feel like this is very powerful. And we feel like I feel like, yeah, the whole structure of how policing has been done, it needs to be done over, and this civilian review board would be very powerful. But not only just having the academia and the and obviously the professionals who work in policing just working alongside with the civilian review board, but also having somebody from the community actually who has a track record of doing things in the community, working alongside with that as well. And just if I feel like the way we think in the streets is we can't depend on somebody to find us that isn't us. You know what I'm saying? So if we could, you know, find somebody who's known in the community that's got a track record of doing work, and we could go to that civilian review board and actually feel comfortable, I think that would be a place where we could popularize, you know, actually not, I wouldn't say giving up information on each other, but we could popularize at least as a community working together. And I think that's I think this would be powerful in that way. But we do need to change the whole structure. And I think the executive decision with the mayor and the police commissioner, he doesn't have a track record of ensuring our community anything, and so the mayor doesn't either. So what I feel like is I agree with the young lady earlier. We need to change who we're going to complain to and how we're going to get things done immediately. And just how Jacob said, I can't be waiting on 4 years on the line. It has to be done right now. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with everything Jacob said and the young lady said earlier.
Thank you very much, Daryl. At this point, we're going to take a pause, and we're pretty much at the midway point. For those of you who may have joined us at this point, we would like to remind attendees that this session, please mute. For those of you who have joined us at this point, we'd like to remind you that this session has interpretation available in multiple languages. At this time, I'm going to ask that the different interpreters please introduce themselves. So I'll start with the Vietnamese interpreter. Can you please introduce?
Hello, my name is Carolina, a Vietnamese interpreter. Nếu quý vị Việt Nam nào mà cần nghe tiếng nói tiếng Việt Nam, xin hãy tắt âm lượng của quý vị trong sự kiện chính và gọi vào số 617-675-4444 hoặc truy cập vào số 131-432-995-8115. Cảm ơn.
Thank you. Will the Spanish interpreter please introduce yourself?
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Tracy Pichardo. Soy la traductora de español. Si necesitan el audio español, apague el volumen para este evento importante. Por favor, a llamar 617-675-4444. Llamar 617-675-4444. Código de acceso 728-297-573-1854. Código de acceso es 728-297-573-1854. Este es el número para llamar para el audio de español.
Thank you. Will the Haitian Creole interpreter please introduce yourself? Will the Haitian Creole interpreter please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Samuel Malice. It's me and Smiley T. Jack who's doing the Haitian Creole interpreter. Non, allô, bonsoir tout le monde. Nom c'est Samuel Malice. C'est moi avec Smiley Jack qui a fait interprétation créole là. Pour participer dans l'événement principal, ça, relais le numéro ça. 617 675 44 44. Encore une fois, le numéro de téléphone c'est 617 675 44 44. Et l'offre une composé numéro ça, ou un code accès. Et code accès c'est 453 179 259 92 11. Code accès encore, c'est 453 179 259 92 11. Et l'offre finit à peser pound. Thank you.
Thank you. Will the Mandarin interpreter please introduce yourself?
Hi, here we have Wei and Terry will be your Mandarin interpreter. 你好，Wei 和 Terry 会为您做翻译。如果你需要这个普通话的音频的话，请在这个活动上关上你的音量，请拨打617-675-4444，加入密码185-386-240-5224，井号键。再说一遍，请拨打617-675-4444，加入密码185-386-240-5224，然后井号键。好，谢谢。
Thank you. Will the Cantonese interpreter please introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Melissa and Anna, and we are interpretation for today's event. 大家好，我係 Melissa 同埋我嘅拍檔 Anna， 今日咧就提供廣東話翻譯。如果你係需要轉到廣東話嘅音頻，請撥打1617-675-4444，跟住輸入密碼720-950-146-2457井字。重申一次，電話係
The Cape Verdean Creole interpreter.
950-146-2457井，多謝。
Thank you. Will the Cape Verdean Creole interpreter please introduce yourself? Cape Verdean Creole interpreter, please introduce yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry. Hi, this is Eva and Rochelle. So, nós é intérprete cabo-verdiano, crioulo cabo-verdiano. Simulmestiário na crioulo cabo-verdiano. Desliga o som para esse evento principal. Então, vou poder ligar no número 617-675-4444. Código de acesso para poder entrar na reunião ali é 548-211-110-9733. Depois tem aquele quadrado de último. Então, se você liga para ouvir a reunião ali na língua cabo-verdiana, liga naquele número mais uma vez. 617-675-4444, código de acesso 548-211-110-9733. Tem aquele quadrado pound de paz. Obrigado. Thank you.
Thank you. Live captioning will be streamed simultaneously as a split screen to this session. On the right-hand side of the screen, you will see a window to view the multimedia player, which will show the live captioning. Please click Continue to view the live captioning. The ASL stream of this meeting can be accessed via Zoom platform. Meeting ID number is 964-5353-6839. Passcode is 151195. Again, the meeting ID is 964-5353-6839, and the passcode is 151195. The WebEx meeting will be screen shared in the Zoom platform with no audio. Everyone joining this event as an attendee will have their microphone muted, and you will not have the ability to turn your camera on. If you are joining on a computer device, at the bottom of your screen, you have a menu that has different icons. The microphone will be grayed out since you are muted as an attendee. If you can't hear, please click the phone icon and check to make sure your audio connection is set to speaker and microphone. To give testimony, please raise your hand or comment in chat. The host will unmute you. To raise your hand, open the participant information panel, click the hand icon in the lower right corner. If you are connected by telephone, please press *3 to raise your hand. You will hear 2 beeps when you are taken off mute. At that point, you can begin your spoken testimony. Once your testimony is done, please click the raise hand again to lower your hand. If you are joining by phone and you have concluded your testimony, please press *3 to lower your hand. Please keep in mind that this meeting is being recorded and testimony will be shared with the task force. We encourage you to continue submitting written comments via the Google form on the boston.gov /ending-racism website until Friday, August 7th. We ask that you please speak slowly so that the interpreters can do their job. We will now open it back up to anyone who may have any comments to add to the discussion. We are talking about the co-op, the Boston Police Review Board. I remind those who are just joining us that a little bit of the background. On June 12th, the mayor signed on to I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong screen. The Community Ombudsman Oversight Panel is an independent board appointed by the mayor. Panel members have experience in law and in criminal justice. The panel's job is to make sure police investigations are fair and thorough. The panel reviews complaints against the department's internal investigation team, including cases that have a finding of not sustained, cases where the defendant was exonerated, cases where the claims were considered unfounded, or cases where the person filing an appeal feels they weren't given fair treatment. 2017, the mayor signed an executive order to expand the panel's size. It went from 3 members to up to 5 members. He increased the caseload, and it includes a random review of cases that do not have complaints filed against them. So we now turn it back over to you, the community. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments. Now, we're not really here to answer questions other than some very basic questions that might help better inform your thoughts. So we are here to listen, and I see we do have some new hands up. The host can.
So I just want to unmute Pam Ross, who asked a question earlier. Pam, if you would like to.
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Pam. Hello, Pam.
Yes. You hear me?
Yes, please speak.
Okay. The question was on the forms. If you had a complaint, what's really important to me is the follow-up. That they follow up with me and don't leave me hanging.
Explain more.
Do you hear me?
Have you had an experience? Can you share that with us? Are you willing to do that?
Not really.
Okay.
But you know, I like when, you know, if you make a complaint, they can follow up with you. That's important to me.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pam. The host, do you see who is next?
Claire Barker. Claire, you're unmuted.
Thank you. The Globe, the Sunday Globe a few days ago had a long story about the review of the existing board and the kinds of complaints that had been made in the process and how long it took to get resolution, the fact that reports had not been filed in quite some over a period of years, there had been no reports. I'm assuming that everybody on the task force will have read that article, and so I know you're only interested in comments from us, but my thinking is that that kind of transparency to the public, to publish results, to really push for resolution as well, to have regular reporting will be very important in order to beef up that process and give citizens more trust in the police. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire. Are there any more questions or comments, any input from you, the community? We would like to hear from you. I see some hands up, but I don't know if they've remained up from previous. Stephen Buckley and Jacob Lito, your hands are still up. Do you still have questions or comments to make?
I'm going to unmute Emily H. has another question.
Thank you.
Hi, I guess I had a question again about the process. When a complaint against an officer goes to internal affairs, is the officer aware that a complaint is ongoing and who is complained? And does the review board consider that anonymity or lack of it in reviewing whether an investigation was fair or not? Hello?
Okay, yes, thank you for your question. You want to know if anonymous complaints are accepted and considered?
Yes, I want to know if they're always anonymous or if they're accepted if they're anonymous, because I do think that that affects people's ability to make complaints.
So yes, you can file a report anonymously, but it limits the ability of the investigator to investigate the facts of the case.
Are any more comments?
Chad, you're unmuted.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So since the last time that I had spoke, I was looking through the proposal, again, the PDF of the proposal that Councilor Campbell, and there's some questions and comments, but here I go. I think one of the things we should consider is how many complaints, and maybe we could do like a 3-strike policy in regards to the number of complaints that would lead to an officer's decertification, a BPD officer's decertification. Also, consider who looks at the complaint. It should be like the people who are on the board should definitely not be related to any city workers or BPD officers, just to reduce the chances of any kind of corruption. I don't know, like other cities that have civilian review boards. Maybe you guys already, I'm sure you guys might already know what the typical turnaround time is. I'm wondering what, for anybody who files a complaint, what they should expect the turnaround time to be. Also, I do think, regardless of the turnaround time, will the result of each investigation remain on the review board website? I mean, I hope it does, because ever since what happened with George Floyd, I mean, you've heard about some of these officers being, suspended or put on some sort of detention, or even if they are fired from the force, they're able to find, it's only a matter of time before they find another job with another force that's closer to where they live. Also, I have tons more. I mean, I think all municipal buildings, not just outside, excluding the BPD headquarters, is where a resident should be able to go in and file a complaint. I mean, I'm talking about even like a Boston Public Library. Also wanted to also reach out and thank Tanisha for actually setting up a YouTube channel, because I think that's another outlet that we can talk a little bit more about this. And I think that's about all I have for right now.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We do appreciate your comments. I believe Stephen Buckley would like to speak again. Stephen, can you hear us? The host would unmute Stephen Buckley.
Yep. Of course, I can't say anything until you unmute me. So thank you.
We can hear you now.
Yeah. Thank you. 30 years ago, I was working as an internal oversight auditor for a federal agency. And so even though it wasn't law enforcement, in a way it was environmental police. So I was one of the guys who would go around, the internal affairs person who would go around with a checklist of, a clipboard, trying to get people into trouble. That's the way they looked at it. But really it was to find out what's going wrong in the system, not who screwed up. But unfortunately, a lot of people look, and there's a tendency to look for a scapegoat, who screwed up. And sometimes it is the person, but experts understand that 80% of problems in a system are because of the system, not because somebody, quote, screwed up. 20% is people, but 80%, the vast majority, is because the system is making people do things that they wouldn't do, but they have to because that's what it says in the policies and procedures book. That's how you do it. That's how you get trained. That's how you're expected to do it. And so what I'd like to point out is that, and I put a link in the chat box, I belong to a group that's been around since 1946 that comes up with procedures for improving an organization's performance, even in government, not just for factory assembly line or something like that. So it's the American Society for Quality, and it's asq.org. But there's no reason to reinvent systemic improvement when it's already been done decades ago. It's just the fact that people don't know that a lot of this has been already been done. And perhaps people have heard of the Malcolm Baldrige Award, but it's a national award given by the federal government for the best run organizations in the US, including government agencies. So rather than, and maybe the city of Boston has a quality office. Almost every major city has somebody who does internal oversight for quality, not for getting people in trouble, not as a complaint thing, but trying to figure out where the patterns are and why things are acting as they are from a systemic point of view. So that's my suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, I think Daryl would like to speak again, and we do have time to hear from Daryl again.
I really to say to the sergeant, or I forgot, I don't know who it was specifically that just spoke, but the reason why the civilian review board would work and the reason why it's so important because the corruption that has been going on in the system forever, that's the real corruption. I feel like with the civilian review board, we could always look into who's related to who and who knows who. But one thing I could say is that the reason why it's more important to have a building or something, you guys are getting so much funding to do the policing, and the policing has been going wrong for years and years and centuries, and it's been a lot of corruption. I just feel like with the civilian review board, it's almost bringing back community and bringing back people to have a safe net to come with issues and come with problems. You almost lower lessen the crime. You're almost hitting the actual people who are being arrested and who are being apprehended. I feel like there isn't no negatives with the civilian review board. Actually, I think you guys should actually use a lot of hundreds of millions of that funding and put it into this, because this is where it's a safety for our people that's actually in the community. You guys are there to enforce, and I feel like you guys are more on the ground military, and I think that's where you guys should stay at, just to enforce. And I feel like the whole civilian part is very important for us to define ourselves for ourselves. It's just common sense.
Are there any more comments? I don't see any raised hands. Oh, Dina? Has Dina spoken yet? Dina?
Yes, hi. Sorry, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Dina.
Okay, great. Yes, no, I just have a concern about if a civilian were to make a comment. I just want to I don't know if there's already a process in place or if this is being discussed, just to make sure like there's no type of retaliation, especially from the officer that the civilian is making the complaint about, or any retaliation from his coworkers or her coworkers and so forth. So I don't know if there's one already in place or if that's something that's being discussed.
Well, thank you very much, Dina. I think that is important for us to consider in our recommendations. Are there any more? I don't see any more raised hands. If anyone else would like to jump in and give us your impressions, your feedback, we truly welcome that. That's how we're going to inform the recommendation that we make to the mayor. So if anyone else out there, if you have any comments that you would like to share with us, please raise your hand, and we would love to hear from you. I remind you that you can submit, you have other comments and questions and you're a little too shy to do it today, you can submit them online. We will put that slide back up there. You can submit your comments until Friday, August 7th. You can do that online at the website. It's a Google form, boston.gov / ending-racism. So you can go there, or you can go to bit.ly / BPD form and submit your comments, your thoughts, your questions, whatever you would like for us to consider as we go about trying to strengthen the existing police review board. If you think that there needs to be something else in addition to, in place of, whatever your thoughts are, we will look at them. We will absolutely consider those. And we really do need your feedback in order to perform the task of making a strong recommendation to the mayor. I see we have a new hand up. Luis Guzman. Host, if you could unmute Luis Guzman.
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you.
okay, thank you. I just had something to say when it comes to like the police officers and the 3 strikes. Like that means if they get in trouble, they get 3 opportunities, correct?
I'm sorry, you said if the officers get
Like sort of like a 3 chances, like in order for them not to like be on the force anymore. They get 3 chances. Is that correct?
well, actually, Luis, we're here to take your comments and your questions, not necessarily to answer.
Oh, okay.
But I would think that would, most definitely, it has to depend on every case and what the facts are of that case.
Right.
So can you tell us what your concern is?
But my concern is that like I put police officers in a higher pedestal than anything because I feel like their badge represents so much in terms of protection and serving. And I feel like if an officer steps his boundaries, depending on the case, they should be reprimanded immediately and taken off from the force and like and basically I feel that that I it's a lot of like just emotion when it comes to it. I just feel like officers are treated like they're giving more chances, and I feel like that's not fair for the community and that's not fair for us.
Okay, I understand. Is there anything more do you have any further thoughts? Do you think how many chances do you think they should be given?
Just one. Depending on the case, because I feel like if someone, God forbid, hurts someone individual and murders them, they should be forced out the job and like put to jail.
Thank you so much, Luis. I know that sounded very difficult for you, but we appreciate your comments and your thoughts there.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to give us their thoughts, impressions, comments? Again, we are tasked with providing recommendation to the mayor regarding strengthening the existing police review board, which is called the co-op, the Community Ombudsman Oversight Panel. That's what co-op stands for. We welcome your comments. We need your feedback so that we can make the best recommendation for the city of Boston and for its citizens and residents. So if there's anyone who has any thoughts, we would like to hear from you. Is there anyone else who would like to give us some feedback, information on how we can strengthen the co-op board? Well, let me put a couple of questions. Let me ask you some questions if anyone has any thoughts. It has come up where someone talked about time frames. How long do you think that it should take? What's a reasonable amount of time to have a complaint investigated and a determination made? Do you think there should be time limits? And if so, what should they be? If anyone has any thoughts on that? I don't know if Luis Guzman, if your hand is up for a second time, but I see that it is up. Do you have another comment to make? No, okay.
I'm going to unmute Clara Barker.
Hi.
Hi.
You know, that's a really interesting question, Ms. Cartwright. Perhaps not a time frame, because I'm sure questions, you know, different cases take longer times, but perhaps a transparent, at least available to the complainant and possibly to the public of here's where this complaint is right now. And these are the next, you know, this is the steps that is completed. Here's the step it's in. And here are the steps it will still need to go through. Perhaps Mr. Buckley, who spoke, his organization could have some interesting suggestions on, you know, reasonable timeframes and improving the quality of it. But at the very least, for each case, knowing where things stand would be helpful.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you think that one of the things we definitely should consider is keeping the complainant informed of the status of the complaint. Thank you. I see Emily H. has a hand up. Emily, can the host unmute Emily H?
Hi, I just wanted to re-raise a suggestion from earlier that someone had said about the review board making recommendations for training. I think if the review board is reviewing the types of complaints that are being made as they're reviewing the investigations, there might be call for the review board then to make suggestions about the type of training, like de-escalation training or that kind of thing, that they would suggest that the police departments look into if a certain type of complaint keeps coming up over and over.
Thank you, Emily.
I don't know who else is out there, but we're short on time, and I just want to make sure that we get the maximum amount of comments it's available. Pam Ross, was that a new hand? And anybody else there who has not raised their hand, please do so.
Yes, thank you, Jamal. I was just about to ask that Pam Ross be unmuted.
Thank you. Yes, I'm unmuted.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. I agree with the lady said. That's what I had in mind as well. Just a quick follow-up and a solution to the problem. Whatever the problem is, keep the person informed, the person complaining. You know, just let them know, you know, going forward, we can do this, or, you know, what's a better solution to the problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Pam. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments?
Hello, everyone. I just have one last comment, and I just wanted to say, you know, Black people are accounted for 70% of the police stops. We cannot talk about equality, you know what I'm saying? Because Black people are the only people, not Hispanic or any other color. You know, the world and the Boston can't see the problem or because they can't deal with it. And that's all I want the mayor to know, and that's all I want the community to know. We need a civilian review board.
Thank you very much, Daryl. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? See, Pam Ross's hand is still up. Pam, if you do not wish to speak, can you lower your hand, please? there any more comments, thoughts, suggestions, questions? And we are looking for your input in order to provide the best recommendations that we can to the mayor in terms of police review, whether it be a co-op or if you're interested in some other entity. Let us know what you think it would look like, what you would like for it to look like. I do not see any other hands up. Are there any questions in the chat box? Because I'm trying to look at too many things here at one time.
It would be really great to hear from anybody out there who has not spoken thus far. Please, you know, we have a limited time for this, and once these opportunities go, and then folks say we didn't have an opportunity, like we're here now. Please. Did Chad Fletcher raise his hand again?
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Chad,
Okay.
we do have.
Yes.
Let's go ahead.
All right. So this is a more general question. I'm just I don't know if you guys have access to these statistics, but how many complaints have been filed against BPD officers prior to George Floyd, and how many complaints have been filed against BPD officers, you know, after the George Floyd incident? If you guys could, I'm
gonna just jump in there because once again speaking for myself. That's completely so outside of what we're able to do. You know, first of all, it's very difficult for us to get into question and answer session. What this session is asking y'all what you would like to see as a model for civilian review board and any changes that you would like to the co-op. Statistics and all that. Particularly you talking about George Floyd, like we don't have real-time statistics from the past 60 days or so. You know, that's a very difficult ask. So we don't have that, but let's please, folks out there, please give us suggestions, more suggestions, fewer questions, and I don't mean that disrespectfully.
Are there any other comments? As Jamal said, once we close out this session, we will be moving on. Tomorrow, our session is going to be on use of force. Tomorrow's session is use of force, and it will be at the same time, 3 to 5. And we welcome all of you. Please join us again tomorrow. Please spread the word in the community that we will be hosting a listening session tomorrow on use of force. Today's session is about getting your feedback on how we can strengthen present co-op board or put something else in its place or something else to complement it. Whatever your suggestions are regarding any type of a police review or oversight. I see no hands raised. I see no questions in the chat box. Anything at all? Any further thoughts on police review board or entity? Okay, I see Emily has something in the chat box. Emily, would you like to speak again? Will the host unmute Emily?
Hi.
Hi, Emily. You raised something in the chat box that you agree that the final decision should not rest with the police commissioner. Can you give us your thoughts on what should happen by way of a final decision?
Well, I think that there should maybe be a civilian review board or a secondary body other than the police review board, just because if it goes back to the police commissioner, I do think that it undermines the teeth of whatever independent review has been done. And somebody already raised the point that a decision made by the police commissioner is not a decision that's being made by the community that has to experience the consequences of constant over-policing. So I really do think that a civilian review board or some other type of body, if it's not the police review board, should make the ultimate decision. I'm not sure as to the mayor. The same person made the point that the mayor also doesn't necessarily represent the community being over-policed. So I just think that that final decision has to be somewhere else.
Do you have any ideas of what that or who that someone else should be to make?
Well, ideally, the police review board would necessarily be increased both in its funding and in its numbers, and a portion of that board maybe would get to make that decision, not just review the investigation, but kind of make that decision. I think that that would put a lot more power into the independent review as opposed to it going back into the police department with the police commissioner. And I think that's a primary point that a lot of people that are upset that have requested listening hearings like this have made, is that if a review board investigates, reviews investigations, but then doesn't have any decision-making power, then it really does undermine a lot of what they're doing if their review can just be ignored.
Thank you very much. Emily has brought up a really good point. Are there any other thoughts out there on how final decisions should be made by whatever police review board is put in place? Are there any thoughts on that? I see some, I don't know if they're new hands or not. I see Claire Barker. Is your hand up for something new?
Yes, it is.
Do you have any
for letting me speak again? I realize that's not ideal. It occurs to me that a restorative justice function could be very important. I don't know if that's part of the board now, but offering, I think that whole process of restorative justice can be very helpful in putting things right between people. And I hope the task force will consider looking at that in your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Is there anyone else who has not spoken? We would like to hear from you. Let's see, we have 35 people out here in the audience. Do any of you want to give your thoughts on anything having to do with police review board? I see Stephen Buckley, your hand is up. Is that a new thing, or have you not lowered your hand from previous comments?
It's a new one. I just wanted to follow up something Emily just said about independent. I'm looking at the brochure that the co-op puts out about how the process works and so forth, and it does say that, yes, it goes back that the final decision is the police commissioner, but the board, an independent oversight board, doesn't need to get internal agreement. They can just say, hey, yes, it seems that officer so-and-so did not follow the procedures, and it doesn't even have to be a recommendation. It can just be a finding. This is what we find. And if it doesn't have to be anybody's fault, it can just, and it doesn't need anybody else's agreement, just say, and then if they were to make a year-long or a pattern, so they could say, geez, we've noticed over the past year that there's a number of these types of things that seems to be showing up, whether it's de-escalation or whatever. But to be able to say, these are our findings, and pass it on to the police commissioner and just say, this is what we're finding, you know, deal with it or don't deal with it, but don't say you didn't know because we've told you. And then if something does happen later on, then of course they can say, well, he can't plead willful ignorance, you know, hey, I had no idea that was a problem. Well, yeah, you know, according to this, you signed off that you read the report on this pattern happening. And that was the other part too, is that I didn't see where the panelists in this process actually play any role. It says this person goes to the ombudsman, and then it goes to here, and then it goes to there. He signs off on this, and she signs off on that. And I'm like, well, what do the panelists do? So that's a question. I mean, don't have to answer it now. It just doesn't say what they actually do other than watch. So thank you very much.
And so once again, that's part of the thing. We want a clear understanding that what the co-op does, the Community Ombudsman Oversight Panel, is all that they do is look over decisions already made by Internal Affairs and the whole appeals process. So the concept that they're looking into individual cases and saying, here's what we recommend in the case of Officer Sullivan who beat up little Tyrone Johnson, that doesn't happen. What they get to do is they get to review the process by which an appeal, if an appeal was filed, was then run through the process and adjudicated. So some of what you may be talking about, this is why we need to really hone in and be specific, because what it sounds like you're talking about are suggestions that would be implemented in a true civilian review board, or could possibly be talking about an expansion of the current powers and duties that the co-op has. But we have to be very laser-like focused on what the entity that we have in existence does, and talking about civilian review board, which we do not have currently, which hopefully we can have in the future in a means of our liking.
Thank you, Jamal. Does anyone have any comments on what Jamal has just said? Again, I do invite you to attend tomorrow's listening session. It's going to be on use of force. And it's very important that we do hear from the community with respect to use of force and recommendations that we will make to the mayor. So that listening session will be tomorrow from 3 to 5. And we welcome you to come to that as well. But before we close out today, we'd just like to get your last final thoughts and comments on the co-op Community Ombudsman Oversight Panel, whether or not that's something that we need to, well, we definitely know we need to strengthen it. So we need to get some guidance on that, and or whether or not to recommend something entirely different. So again, we're asking for your comments. I see Luis Guzman. You could be unmuted, please.
Yes, I just want to say, just like Darrell said earlier, I agree. The oversight panel is necessary for the community, especially if there's 5 civilians appointed to it by the mayor. I just agree with that a lot.
Okay. I appreciate that. I see it. Chad, you have your hand up again. Chad Fletcher, if we could unmute Chad. I do, just before you start talking though, Chad, I'm asking anyone who has not spoken, please, now is your time. We would love to hear, you know, all of the voices from, now I see we're down to 34 people, but we would love to hear your thoughts and comments. Chad, please speak, we can hear you.
Yes, okay, good. So I do think that we can also learn quite a bit from because I'm looking at the city of Cambridge website, and they already have a police review and advisory board up this. I see they've had one since the 80s, but now I know these meetings we've had. They've been pretty often, but I do think that this board that we set up should meet at least. I think it should be at least once a month, if at all possible. I don't know. I don't think it might have to be. I don't think it should be any more. Well, I don't know if it should be any more frequent than that. I mean, it depends on how many. I think it depends on how many complaints. The amount of meetings that this board has should be directly related to the amount of complaints that you receive from residents of the city, like myself. Another thing I just came across was the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. So we can also refer to the information that they have, what they have to create our own police board. A little bit more time to take a look at that, but I can type the website into the chat.
Okay, let me just interject again. Speaking once again as myself, Chad, brother. I feel your passion and your thing, and I really want to rock with you. Just understand that, at least for a guy like me, 20, 30 years on deck. Yes, CPRAB, on point, great. I at least know the people there, know the people from when it was started. Naacp, yes, IADLIS, all these people. So once again, if you have a vision of what you would like to see here in Boston, please and great. Just trust that at least me speaking for myself as an individual, not as a member of the task force, me speaking for myself, please understand that anything that you just Googled, I already Googled before Google was Google.
So this is Tanisha. I do need to interject here, Jamal, and I appreciate your passion. But I also want to make sure that we're thanking our neighbors who we've invited to a listening session, who we understand that we're all at different points on this journey. And some of us have been in this work for quite some time, and others of us are just learning. And so I do appreciate really hearing from all of our residents who are joining this conversation today. And while it is true that some of what you all might be bringing to the table, some of us may already be aware of, but I don't want to send a chilling effect and cause folks not to want to speak, because it is possible that someone out there might have something to share with us that we don't know. Again, we don't know everything, even for those of us who have been in this work for quite some time. And so I do appreciate your comments, Chad, and appreciate the feedback that the comments that everyone has made, whether it's information that this panel already is aware of, or quite frankly, it's information that, that might be new to our neighbors. And so thank you for sharing that. And if you don't mind, again, because we have several attendees on the line, could you just repeat, Chad, the website? I know that we as a task force, we're aware of the National Oversight Organization, but could you just repeat it for the rest of our neighbors who are listening in case someone else wants to Google it?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yes, everyone can still hear me. It is it's NACOLE.org.
Okay.
Yeah, just www.nacole.org.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Do appreciate that, that many of you have done some of your research into this subject before coming to this listening session. So that is very much appreciated, and it does help to inform us, if nothing but to let us know that you're on this and you are invested in this. So again, we do thank you. We appreciate your comments, and I would welcome if there's anyone new who hasn't spoken, if you could please speak up. We are here to listen. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their thoughts or comments on what a oversight, police oversight or review board would look like or should look like? Okay, I see no more hands. Are there any other comments to put in the chat? You would like to do that? Right, well, we will also be accepting your comments, questions, or thoughts on any of the subjects that we have had. I will go over, this is the third of 4 listening sessions. The first listening session was regarding body-worn cameras. You have thoughts or questions on that, you can submit that until August 7th. We also held a listening session on implicit bias training. We will accept comments on that. And finally, today was about the co-op board and police review. If you have any further thoughts or suggestions for that, you can send those to us online. We will be accepting that through August 7th. That's Friday, August 7th. To get those additional comments in to us, you can submit those at bit.ly/BPD form. And again, we will accept those comments until August 7th. And if you have any comments you would like to submit for tomorrow's listening session, if you submit it in advance, you will be heard. You get to go to the front of the line. It's like having a little quick pass. You can submit those questions for tomorrow's listening session, which is on use of force. You can send those to bit.ly/BPD form, FORM. Once we receive all of the comments from you, the community, whether it's through these listening sessions or you've submitted them online, we will put together a draft report of our initial recommendations, and we will submit those to the mayor by mid-August. That will also be shared with you for even more comments. But we would like to make our initial report as thorough as we can. So again, we invite you to submit your comments to us from these listening sessions by Friday, August 7th. And tomorrow, we will be holding the final listening session on use of force. So we invite you to come to that as well. I would like to conclude by thanking you for your participation today, and for engaging in this discussion with us. Community participation is a key component to this work. It is very critical that we have your input, because we are hoping that the recommendations we give will have a long-lasting effect on how policing is done in the city of Boston. So we really do need your input. This will affect you, it will affect your neighbors, your family, your friends. So as I said, we're holding these listening sessions. We are still accepting comment through Friday, August 7th. So I implore you to continue your participation, whether it be coming to the listening sessions or submitting your comments, thoughts, statements, questions online. So again, we have one listening session left. That is tomorrow afternoon from 3 to 5. I thank all of you again for coming for our task force members. Many of us, we try to attend all of these listening sessions, and we had a healthy number of our task force present today. So we are listening to you and we value your feedback. And with that, I will ask if there are any other comments. You may please submit those via online. Thank you very much. We appreciate you.